8 o'clock in the morning by Ray Nelson. At the end of the show, the hypnotist told his subjects, awake. But something unusual happened. One of the subjects awoke all the way. This had never happened before. His name was George Nada, and he blinked out at the sea of faces in the theater, at first unaware of anything out of the ordinary. Then he noticed, spotted here and there in the crowd, the non-human faces, the faces of the fascinators. They had been there all along, of course, but only George was really awake, so only George recognized them for what they were. He understood everything in a flash, including the fact that if he were to give any outward sign, the fascinators would instantly command him to return to his former state, and he would obey. He left the theater, pushing out into the neon night, carefully avoiding any indication that he saw the green reptilian flesh or the multiple yellow eyes of the rulers of the earth. One of them asked him,
"Got a light, buddy?"
George gave him a light, then moved on. At intervals along the street, George saw the posters hanging with photographs of the fascinators' multiple eyes and various commands printed under them, such as work 8 hours, play 8 hours, sleep 8 hours, and marry and reproduce. A TV set in the window of a store caught George's eye, but he looked away in the nick of time. When he didn't look at the fascinator on the screen, he could resist the command, "Stay tuned to this station." George lived alone in a little sleeping room, and as soon as he got home, the first thing he did was to disconnect the TV set. In other rooms, he could hear the TV sets of his neighbors, though. Most of the time, the voices were human, but now and then, he heard the arrogant, strangely bird-like croaks of the aliens.
"Obey the government,"
said one croak.
"We are the government,"
said another.
"We are your friends. You'd do anything for a friend, wouldn't you? Obey. Work."
Suddenly the phone rang. George picked it up. It was one of the fascinators.
"Hello.
It squawked.
This is your control, Chief of Police Robinson. You are an old man, George Nada. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, your heart will stop. Please repeat."
"I am an old man," said George. "Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, my heart will stop." The control hung up. "No, it won't," whispered George. He wondered why they wanted him dead. Did they suspect that he was awake? Probably. Someone might have spotted him, noticed that he didn't respond the way the others did. If George were alive at 1 minute after 8 tomorrow morning, then they would be sure. No use waiting here for the end, he thought. He went out again. The posters, the TV, the occasional commands from passing aliens did not seem to have absolute power over him, though he still felt strongly tempted to obey, to see things the way his masters wanted him to see them. He passed an alley and stopped. One of the aliens was there, alone, leaning against the wall. George walked up to him.
"Move on,"
grunted the thing, focusing his deadly yellow eyes on George. George felt his grasp on awareness waver. For a moment, the reptilian head dissolved into the face of a lovable old drunk. Of course, the drunk would be lovable. George picked up a brick and smashed it down on the old drunk's head with all of his strength. For a moment, the image blurred, and then the blue-green blood oozed out of the face, and the lizard fell, twitching and writhing. After a moment, it was dead.
Welcome to the Mike and Doug Show. Mike and the Miners and Doug and the
face of the map with an avalanche that occurred in what they were hiding with him. His deep pocket family is called Abyss, Abys. In fact, that's his mother's maiden name. And then we now have the information on the last 11 generations of the Abyss family. And we track it all the way back to the 15th century. And one thing is clear about these people: they are into royalty. They are into passing their aristocratic crest from father to son, daughter to mother. However, they've got to do it to keep it in the family. And that's really what we see here, is that the Abyss family that Fauci was born into on his mother's side, is a very powerful, has been a very powerful Swiss business, political, banking, industrial power since the 1500s.
And it's amazing because when we first got into this, we were looking at Klaus Schwab and finding out that he was really a German Jew who then used Switzerland as his neutral ground or I almost think of it as a demilitarized zone. You know, they're not allowed to go to war in Switzerland because that's where the bankers are and that's where the gold is kept and that's where all the, it, Switzerland is the number one producer of gold in the world, but they don't have any active gold mines. I mean, it's because all the gold is melted down there and turned into basically gold bullion that's stored in the Zurich bullion vaults that are numbered bullion accounts. So to this very day, the Swiss, and you pointed this out earlier when we were speaking today, it isn't like the conspiracy theories that people have of the Octagon Swiss pharaohs that are the elite Illuminati, that are the elite control of the whole world. Well, the last part of that's true. The control of the whole world is through Switzerland, but it's because they use it as a neutral ground for all the criminals to do their activity in, and nobody ever gets caught, nobody ever gets prosecuted, and for some reason, no bombs ever fall on them, though they are the source of the wars that created the bombs that were falling all around them.
Yep.
So now you get to see that Fauci, this is just an amazing thing that you discovered, is the Fauci escutcheon, the Fauci shield, family coat of arms. It when you showed this to me, I couldn't even believe it. I mean, I worked with a lot of symbols, a lot of symbology, but nothing.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
was
how I
surprised.
didn't see this before. This is the
I
most
was
bizarre thing.
surprised when you were surprised because knowing what you know about ancient symbology of all kinds, I was really surprised. The the crest, even on its surface, is quite offensive. And I am sure that there probably is some attempt to show this snake that's on it as some sort of relationship to medicine, which it does not. And the snake eating the child. I guess we need to describe what the crest shows. It's a crest of a viper eating a human child, got it about half consumed up to the waist, and the viper has a crown on its head, and then it's carrying a yoke with two buckets on each side of the yoke, carrying gold. That's the logo. And in another crest, there's three serpents. But this actually has a name, except for the yoke and the gold. The serpent and the child eating the child it's called a biscione, and it's unique to the Milan area. And what the Abysses did is they borrowed that base way back. We're talking 16th, 15th century, and they added the yoke and the gold about the time they moved north to Chur from Pleurs, where the family was originally. And both of those were in Switzerland at the time. Since then, Pleurs has become part of Italy and has changed its name because it was wiped off the face of the map with an avalanche that occurred in 1618.
An avalanche which the Abyss family was culpable for.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a talc mine up on the mountain above this town called Plurs, Plurs. And they were mining talc for talcum powder and other uses. Talc has a lot of uses. And we even use it in medicine, I understand.
See, let me tell you what it is. If you look at a bacterium and you say you've got these ribosomes, and then you see these pictures in the books of messenger RNA and the ribosomes running on messenger RNA, those are all wrong. Those pictures are wrong. If you see these books, you see a little DNA circle drawn in a bacterium. That's also wrong. The DNA is folded 1,000 times. The length of DNA in a bacterium is about 1 millimeter. The bacterium is 1 micrometer, 1 micron long. So the DNA is rolled up and folded many, many times inside this. And of course, when the messenger comes off the DNA, what you have to imagine is it threading itself through these almost stationary ribosomes, because they're big and they don't diffuse, like a bunch of snakes. So if you really wanted to imagine the reality, it would be these snake-like molecules writhing their way through this lattice of ribosomes in a bacterium.